The Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And Jesus began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the dominion of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the dominion of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Recently, we discovered a moth attack in our basement. Several wool sweaters have holes that need mending. Now, I've never mended any sweaters or socks before, so we've turned to professionals to help us with the task of restoring our beautiful, beloved Norwegian sweaters to their original beauty and wearability.
God is in the business of mending, not necessarily mending clothes, but mending the universe. That is the way Lutheran writer Dan Erlander describes the God of the Bible. God enters into covenant with us, promising mercy, promising justice, promising life for all creation, for all people. And through baptism, we are partners in this holy work of mending what is broken.
Mending might be another way to talk about one of the most well-known and beloved verses from the Old Testament, part of our reading from Micah today. "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God?"
Now, part of mending is acknowledging what has been damaged, what harm has been done. Think of ways that you may have been hurt by another person, or by a system, or perhaps even by forces you cannot name. Think of the anger or the shame or the resentment that you may carry. We come together every Lord's Day to hear the good news that God is the one who heals, who restores, who forgives, and who mends the broken parts of our lives.
The harm done on a social and societal level is often beyond our comprehension because it is woven into the very fabric of our lives, passed on from one generation to the next generation. And daily it seems that we are reminded of the harm that is caused by gun violence in America. As of this morning, I had to change the numbers this morning. As of this morning, there have been 49 separate mass shootings just this month, in which 82 people have died. One of the biggest problems, though, is that we've become numb to all the harm that is done by such violence.
And harm continues to be done to people because of their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, their gender identity. Harm continues to be done to the people of Ukraine. Yet it's astounding that most Ukrainians and Russians are of the same ethnic background and the same Orthodox Christian faith. Harm continues to be done to the earth because of our short-sightedness, our waste, our pollution of natural resources. As one writer puts it, when nature is placed against economics, economics always wins.
Notice how we are using the word we. We are all complicit in the harm done, even if we are not personally responsible.
In last Sunday's gospel, Jesus calls the 12 fishermen to follow him, to leave behind their own comforts and their own privilege, and to walk the way of the cross, the way, as Howard Thurman writes, the way of disinheritance, forsaking power, forsaking privilege, and living the values that Jesus espouses in the Sermon on the Mount. We have the very first part of the Sermon on the Mount this morning, the well-known Beatitudes. They may be something we've heard a lot, but if you stand back, this is upside-down thinking. The blessed are the ones who are persecuted, meek, poor in spirit, those who mourn, those on the bottom. And that is hard for us when our goal is to always be on the top.
Through baptism, we promise to work for justice and peace in all the earth, to join in God's liberating project of mending the universe. Now, Holy Trinity has a long history of taking stands on behalf of those who are marginalized, beginning with gays and lesbians in the 1990s.
Today, we are using an alternative liturgy as one way of responding to harm done by sexism and racism. It's called Sighs Too Deep. As we know, words can harm. And the texts of this liturgy use expansive language and images for both God and humanity. So think back to the phrase, "I can't breathe," uttered by George Floyd before his death. The image of breath and breathing occurs throughout this liturgy. And during the Thanksgiving at the table, there will be a moment where we collectively take deep breaths together, taking in the breath of the Spirit. In fact, there's a different version of the Lord's Prayer. You'll have to be ready for that in your bulletin. And this different text helps us think about the meaning of the Lord's Prayer in different ways.
Another way Holy Trinity will respond to harm is our work on reparations in the coming months and years. Now, there's already been many forums and articles and presentations in the past couple of years, but now we will enter more intentionally into this work, seeking to engage our entire community in a process of listening and discernment.
So when people hear the word reparations, they think it can mean many things. They wonder what it might mean in our context. Here's what we need to say. We are only beginning this work at Holy Trinity. This sermon is simply the first step in putting this important theme before us.
One thing we can say is this: reparations begin by naming the harm done, especially to the indigenous peoples and enslaved Americans. Not only the harm that's been done in the past, but how such harm continues to affect these communities today. We begin by telling the truth, as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of South Africa did, led by Desmond Tutu many years ago. We need to take a breath before we speak, to listen to those harmed, to listen and learn the role that white Americans have played and continue to play in this harm.
Now, most people think of financial restitution when they first think about reparations. We will get to that in our discernment, but much later. For now, let reparations be about restored relationships, about political solidarity, about spiritual practices, about listening to where God is calling this community in the process of mending what is broken.
When you hear the word reparation, think repair.
Think mending.
Think healing.
Think making right what has been taken or harmed.
Now, we, of course, cannot do this work alone. We do so as a community that is deeply rooted in spirituality and theology.
And we will learn from other faith communities embarking on this journey. In nearby Evanston, 16 congregations of different denominations are partnering with the city in making reparations to Black residents there.
And in the Northeastern Minnesota Synod of the ELCA, they are in the process of making reparations to the Minnesota Chippewa tribe in an effort toward repairs for past harms.
And Episcopalians in Virginia are acknowledging a long history of support and complicity for chattel slavery and violence against indigenous peoples and the land. There are numerous church buildings there constructed by enslaved peoples, and these churches are wrestling with what their role might be in repairing, in mending, in restoring what has been taken from other human beings created in the image of God.
Whether we are the ones who are broken or we are joining in God's work of mending the universe, at the very center of it all is the cross, a sign of contradiction, as St. Paul writes in our second reading. What the world calls weakness, God used to show strength.
The cross is our very sign of reconciliation and healing. Across differences, the cross makes us one. The cross then compels us to stand with the broken and the broken-hearted ones of this earth.
We always begin with God's initiative, the gospel, the good news.
God the healer.
God the mender.
God the reconciler.
Our response is to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk reverently with God, not only in this place, but as we leave,
as we work,
as we vote,
as we march,
as we love.
Through our baptism, we become co-menders with God.
What a calling.
What an opportunity.
What a challenge.
And what a humble task.
As a community, we have much to learn.
Much to give.
And in a stark reversal, much to receive as well.
Through this holy work and through God's grace, we receive the healing of our souls and the mending of our lives as well. Amen.